Good morning and welcome to the TC Dojo. Today we are delighted to have John Hedtke as our visiting dojo master. He is a draw for everyone and has all kinds of things to say about just about every part of the technical communication process from start to finish, authoring, planning, to publication, and we are delighted to have him. John, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Yay.
You want to show your screen?
Okie doke. Poof. And hang on, I've got to minimize stuff somehow. And there we go. Oops. Right. We are going to be talking today about creating documentation plans, and we're going to leave this up while I give you a little introduction. On my first tech writing job in 1984, back in the days when men were men and women were women and cars were cars and 640K was good enough for anybody, my God, my first documentation manager taught me how to do a documentation plan. It was a profound part of my education as a technical writer, and thinking about it, it may have been the single most important thing I ever learned about technical writing. And we printed our documentation plans back then on a Diablo 630 daisy wheel printer, a name which is going to make all of the old timers in this session nod their heads and go, uh-huh. And I used the format for the projects I did at that company, which subsequently for contract assignments, and then when I was doing my very first book proposals. And I'd print those out at home on my Juki daisy wheel printer, a noisy little printer that was very good and acted like a Diablo 630. Over the years, I have updated the format, but apart from the addition of a few items and sections and the vastly improved formatting available with laser printer, this really hasn't changed much. I still have a printed copy of the doc plan from the very first Microsoft manual I did in 1986, and apart from the limited formatting you can do on a daisy wheel, it is still the same format. I've used this format for well over 100 manuals and writing projects and at least 40 book proposals, a couple dozen of which have been published. And at the end of this, there will be a link to a downloadable copy of this, and you will be able to take this and use this forevermore. What we're going to cover today: reasons for planning. The elements of the documentation plan, the guts, a few comments on distributing documentation plans, and there are some forms embedded at the back of the documentation plan template you can download, and obviously a summary. Reasons for planning. Why should you plan? You should plan for 3 reasons. First, you state the goals. Next, you specify the details and you describe the process. What this really boils down to, as you'll see in a moment, this is going to be the 5 W's and H that you should always ask for any piece of writing. But all of this is kind of like vaguely officious, and here's why you really should plan. McGee's law is it doesn't matter how you get there if you don't know where you're going. And for those of you who might be interested, Paul McGee is one of the Flying Karamazovs, who I've actually known casually for about 35 years. And he coined this profound bit of wisdom back in 1981, and it is the best justification for planning that I have ever heard. All right. A doc plan, as I said, I was going to show you the details on this. A doc plan answers these questions, and here, in fact, are the 5 W's and H. What do you want to write? Why do you want to write it? How do you want to write it? Where is it going to be written and produced? Who's going to do it? And when? Plain and simple. All right, doc plan elements, and yes, we are hurrying. There is nothing like good coffee in the morning. What do you need to have in your doc plan? Now, I will say prior to launching into all of this, you'll see all of this carefully annotated in the downloadable doc plan that you'll be able to get to. And some of this stuff is adjustable. Moreover, should you come up with something that I don't have in my doc plan template that you find of value, please email me and say, I've added a section on whatever, on how to arm the nuclear warhead or something like that, and I thought it was real valuable because blah, blah, blah. And I will be very keen to hear from you because I always like making this as complete as possible. A typical doc plan tends to have these general elements. An executive summary, we're going to go over each of these in detail. An executive summary, a summary outline, an overview, probably the single meatiest section of that plan. Marketing information, that tends to be a bit optional at times. Production information, project staffing, project schedule, project outline, and optionally terms of agreement. If you are an independent or you are working in a place where you really need to nail things down hard, and we've all worked in places like that, I think. The terms of agreement will help you nail down what you are doing and when with a little more specificity. All right, let's get into describing what each of these sections is. The executive summary. Executives are supposedly busy people. In fact, we generally know that they're busy people with short attention spans. The executive summary is a quick 2 to 4 paragraph summary of the project. You should be thinking elevator speech for this. And in your executive summary, make sure you cover the 5 W's and H. This is going to be really short, absolutely no more than a single page synopsis for the executives who want to read this quickly and don't want to dig through the details. You're selling them on the project so that they kind of know what's going on. The summary outline is, you'll take the detailed outline that you'll create later in the plan, and you're just going to show them the chapter level heads, no detail. And again, this will almost certainly be a single page. Excuse me. The overview. Now, the overview is going to be a great big section. The overview covers what and why in your 5 W's and H. And it will be, what will this document be called? And I would like to say everything, absolutely everything on your documentation plan is a potential point of contention. And that includes, interestingly, the name. And my favorite example is that I was working about 17 years ago at a company, and I said, okay, so and I laid out the documentation plan in a staff meeting with the other managers and our vice president. I said, this is going to be the blah 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 manual, and the head of development leapt to his feet and said, it's not a manual. It's a guide. And while I was trying to parse this sentence, the head of QA leapt to his feet and said, no, it's a manual. And I sat back and watched them. These guys were at it, hammer and tongs, for 20 minutes about it's a manual versus a guide. Now, I could not figure out what the difference was, but this was obviously important to them. I was having trouble getting a word in edgewise, but there we go. I finally said, we're going to call it a manual for right now, but we'll revisit this issue later on, which I carefully never did. What type of document is this? Is this a manual? Is this a book? Is this a training guide? Is this any number of other things? What is the document's scope and purpose? Basically just that. It will be a statement of scope and purpose. Who is the document aimed at? Who's it being written for? what is the average user's background? You might have something like, say you're doing a cookbook. The reader can already perform basic skills and is able to successfully read and follow recipes, but they have not yet mastered more complex cooking skills, such as deboning a chicken, baking bread, or making a pie crust. Or the user has basic computer skills, but is not familiar with the product or something like that. This may be a bullet list if you have a lot of skills. If you're dealing with multiple classes of reader, you describe the skills and background of each reader. And that kind of includes the user's background, I'm sorry. What will the user get out of this document? And so if your user went through this document cover to cover, assuming that it's a manual, it could be online help, what would they have learned to do or understand at the end? List everything that they would learn in the course of going through this. And if you're not sure what to do, leave this blank, come back to it as you put your detailed outline together. The goals for your user will tend to come out of your 2- and 3-level headings in your outline. More, what languages will the document be produced in? Obvious. What are the general assumptions for the project? I always have a boilerplate assumptions section that says that I've described the project accurately in the overview section, this section of the doc plan, that there won't be any project changes that expand the scope to the point of breaking the schedule, and I'm not going to get caught in an endless cycle of reviews and edits, this is mostly when dealing with clients with a decision-making disorder, but not always. And that once they've had the nominally final version of the document for 10 days and they haven't squawked, then their silence means they've bought it as is. Again, this is for clients who may want to try and get cute about not paying for something. You might also in here have what your responsibilities on the project are. Such as, you, the writer, will be responsible for writing and reviewing content, working with the editor, and, list the responsibilities also for, say, the developers you're working with or other people, so that if nothing else, you're nailing down that you are not the person who is responsible for, let us say, in terms of software manuals, let us say that you are not responsible for reading the code to determine what the APIs are, which is occasionally something you can get saddled with. All right, marketing info, the why. Why would you write this document? Well, there will be a market need, let's say. And if you're doing it for a company, you may not even need this section, but occasionally, if you're writing something a little more independent, particularly on book proposals, you'll want to justify why you're doing this. And even if you're writing yet another Microsoft Excel manual or yet another manual for the 2015 Ford Squid Lips station wagon or something like that, if you identify your competition and the marketing strategies you're going to use with respect to this document and this product, it might be really, really helpful for your placement and some of the other considerations. And special considerations will be, for marketing, will be identifying, perhaps, we know through market intelligence or through press releases that there will be a major competitor release in 3 months, and we're going to try and undercut them by coming out with this manual before that, this manual and this product, something like that. Production info, the how and the where, and a little bit of what. Description of deliverables. This is something that is so easy to overlook when you're putting together a documentation plan saying, we will be delivering the following pieces, but it's vital to have this written down, because if you don't say we're creating a PDF version of a manual that will be printable, and you get 3 weeks from your delivery date, and they say, what about the online help? And you say, you didn't ask for online help, and if you write this down saying, I'm going to be doing all of this and no more, as Voltaire said, a good memory does not equal pale ink. What are the writing and editing standards for the document? What formats will this document be available in? Will it be a PDF? Will it be online help? Will it be an 8.5 by 11 printed manual? Will it be a 5 by 8? All sorts of things. How many pages will this document have? We're talking about an estimate, obviously, but if you are printing, particularly, this is good for beginning to get estimates from your print coordinator or the printer if you're doing that work. What are the art requirements? And when I say art, usually, of course, we are talking screenshots or illustration, digital illustrations, but we might be talking photos. We might be talking conceptual art, and that has to be planned for, and somebody has to do that. What kind of typesetting will there be? You can see how old I am and how old this Docplan format is. Almost nobody has typesetting per se, but if you are doing a few things that they may, such as quick reference guides, quick reference cards that ship with the product, you're going to need to identify something about that. Layout, cover art, again, printed manuals more than anything else. How many copies will be produced and printing and things like that. Are there related materials that need to be produced? Now, almost nobody ships manuals or printed documents with CDs anymore because they tend to rely on the ubiquity of the web, but you may have templates, you may have one-sheets, you may have quick reference cards, you may have marketing collateral that you at least need to cross-coordinate style with and things like that. And I'm mentioning translation requirements, and a lot of that will be covered in the overview as well. Staffing, who's going to do what, and it's a long list, and this will all be in the doc plan. So I'm just going to say one thing in particular. When you are writing your lists of writing staff, you need to say, give everybody's name, always put it in alphabetical order. You will avoid so many problems I can't begin to tell you. And there's something I think that I have left out of this, and that is a section in, oh no, I'm sorry, there it is, right down at the bottom. Individuals responsible for approval. You may have 15 reviewers for each section identified, but when it comes to individuals responsible for approval, you want one, count them, one, only one, everybody write that down, one person responsible for approving each section, formats and standards, technical content, and so forth. And the reason is, if you have a committee responsible for approval, you will tear your hair out trying to get them to all agree on it. You want one and only one person who is ultimately responsible for doing all of that. Project schedule, nothing special about that. I'm just going to skip that because we know a lot about project schedule. Let's see, hang on, I'm running through my notes here. The project outline. You want an in-depth outline of the document. Now, in the downloadable one, there is a sample of this. You want it to go into complete, total, utter detail about everything, and you want notes about what each section will contain. List everything. List every bit of front matter, chapters, appendices, glossary, index, coupons, ads in the back, anything, you know, back cover text if it came to that. The template uses, and I recommend, even if you don't use the template, using heading styles for your headings, because if you're doing this in Word, which I would recommend, you can collapse and expand the levels in Word and reorganize and change your style formatting fairly quickly. As I say, everything should have a descriptive comment. I tend to use the heading 7 style, which is indented heavily and in a small font just to put notes in. The detailed outline, as we all know, is a living document that lives, breathes, and changes and evolves almost every time that you open things up. The terms of agreement, as I say, this is more for freelance work or independent pieces, but you will have lists of responsibilities and so forth, and description of deliverables and your assumptions and conditions for renegotiation. This is basically turning your documentation plan into a full signature document, statement of work. And you'll bind all of this into the overview if you're not going to be using it as a contract. All right, that was a quick romp through something, and your head is spinning. I'm going to rely on you looking at the template style, but I do want to say a few things about distributing documentation plans. You will issue your initial documentation plan. You'll send it out to all of your reviewers and approvers, and you'll run this around. You'll get feedback, and you'll match on it and improve it. I strongly recommend getting an actual physical sign-off on a physical document, if at all possible. Failing that, an actual email-based sign-off that says, yes, I approve this. And then you're going to save that, particularly if it's a physical document, because you may well have need to roll the thing up and use it to whack people in the nose. You will then run around and revise this as necessary, and you don't need to sign off on every single change. You know, if you've updated the outline, they don't need to re-sign off. But you do need to distribute that. So if you have a significant change to the outline, you'll say, you know, you might have, excuse me, you might release the thing on email and say, I have updated the outline in this section, and blah, 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 blah. The template has a change log, for example, and like that. And you should very strongly consider keeping the documentation plan in a read-only format, generally available for everyone to look at when they want. And you want to bring this up with people and remind them this is what it is, because this is your statement of work wherever you are. And having it all written down can save your butt. It's wonderful. I had a job 7-8 years ago where I was coming up on a final handoff, and they said, where's the blah, blah, blah section? It was something, and I said, you didn't ask for one. Yes, we did. No, you see all of this that you signed off on? This outline says, you know, day ain't nothing like that. And they all kind of made this kind of scurrying noise, and they said, well, but it's a new feature. We need it. I said, not my problem. We need more time. Can't give you more time. So we went back and forth, and they said, all right, you can whip up, you know, a 3-page thing that identifies this, and we'll call it a chapter and put it in. And it wasn't my fault. And the idea of not my fault was really good. Summary. First, doc plans tell you and everyone else what you're doing. You know, it's the statement of deliverables. It says who's doing it, and as I just mentioned, it's really good for targeting what you're after. They give you a goal to aim for. You will find as you write, you suddenly start going off your own reservation. You go, wait a minute, that's outside my scope. That's not what this chapter is about. That's not what this manual is about. All sorts of things, and you can use them to bring yourself back to reality. I have done that more times than I could ever possibly count. Doc plans make you look good. When you send out a doc plan, and as you will see, a typical documentation plan with a detailed outline is going to be 15, 20 pages easy. Most of that is boilerplate, but you don't need to tell them that. And it says, I have my act together, and very rarely will you be working in a place where you have a document, where your documentation plan is overshadowed by the quality of an engineering document that says what they are going to be producing that is nearly that good. So it fully supports the idea of we are professionals. We can do all of this. Documentation plans make everyone accountable. And as I was mentioning, they can protect you when people decide to make arbitrary changes. They give you a tool, finally, for post-mortem analysis to see how you did. When you get all done and you've showered the mud off of you, you can look at the project and say, all right, did we achieve these goals? Did we write for our user? Did we hit all of the outline? Very rarely will you not hit all of the outline, of course. So if you're using the document as a roadmap so you don't wander off, and then as a published statement of work, whether you're captive or freelance, as a matter of fact, you can use the documentation plan as a negotiation tool at captive or freelance. However you use it, it is a living document. It needs to be updated regularly. Changes to the document are usually going to be in the outline, and you should log and re-release it. All of this goes to support the idea you know what the heck you're doing, and this gives you credibility and the ability to negotiate a little better. Here is the place where you can download a doc plan template at any time, and in some mechanism you will be getting copies of these slides. So you may copy this down now if you wish, and download it and read the doc plan template and cackle. Or you can wait until you get the slides and then download it and cackle. There we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
Click.
And that was perfect.
Thank
you, John. That was fantastic. Am I here?
And you may, by the way, email me at any time, and be persistent. If I fail to get back to you, I get a ton of email, and if I miss something, I apologize. Keep after me.
Thank you, John. That was fantastic. I was thinking of two stories. One I heard from someone yesterday or last week at an STC meeting. She said her boss came to her and said, "I need you to write this tech manual in 8 hours, brand new." That's what she said. So she actually wrote a doc plan. She spent those 8 hours writing a doc plan, handed it in, and said, "Is this what you had in mind?" And the person, she went over it, and there's red all over the place, and she was thrilled to get red ink doc plan back because she had feedback. She knew what she was going to write, and she hadn't wasted her time and money, figuring out writing something that wasn't wanted or needed. And, it just sort of reiterates that doc plans are very, very important.
Can you write a document in 8 hours?
Yeah, I don't think so. Absolutely.
Yes, the power of no. It's like how you would answer that without profanity and mockery. I beat the heck out of me. I think it would be beyond me personally, but I'm a low person.
Oh my gosh. All right, so let me tell you what is coming up in the dojo while you type your questions into the question window. Next, this month in the Arbortext edition, we're going to talk about making cool tables, how to do alternating colored rows automatically with Arbortext Styler. The registration link is at the bottom. Our next dojo open session in July, we're going to start talking about library science. How often have you bookmarked a site only to go back later and not find it in your bookmarks, or bookmark it again and find you've marked it some other way? This is all about cataloging content, and it's a 3-part series. It's going to be fun. Our next master series is Monday, July 16th. You want to grow to become a dojo master and have a chance to just talk about how all you've learned from John and everyone else in the dojo or anywhere else, how that applies to you, and that's what we do in the master series. Thank you, John. Be sure to vote,
You're very
team,
welcome.
on your upcoming sessions. Let us know what you want to learn. It's better for you to tell us. Why should we tell you? You're the one who knows what you want to learn. Let's see what we've got. A couple of questions, I think. We have a fun comment from one of our attendees, Louise. She said, in respect to the nose whacking, she prefers to use a baseball bat.
Well, so do I, given my druthers, but, it will get you talked about.
That is true. Let's see. Anybody else typing in your questions? You have a chance or two. I was thinking about something too you said about the terms being specific for freelance, but you know, it's just as important for if you're in a big corporation and other people, you're dependent on other people to get either something reviewed or some information gathered or some part of the document written. And that really helps to document who is responsible for what, I think.
And it just occurred to me that if you're dealing in a particularly toxic environment, it might be desirable, for all I know, to write down terms of agreement in staffing for how long people will take on reviews, something like that.
Yeah, that actually would be.
I mean, it
helpful.
probably won't help, but at least you've got it in writing. You can say, "You agreed to this, you jerk." So.
You haven't heard from him in a month, and he's not here. Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
Very good to help you. Well, I see no more questions. That's because you are excellent at presenting and telling us all the things that we need to have, plus giving us this great template to work with. I know I can use it. So we all can. Oh, here we go.
Yes.
I like to consider communications as part of the plan. Who to notify, how to email, or internet, or intranet, or whatever. That's actually very good too. I can see that.
Excellent. Write that one up in a little more detail and send it to me, please, because that sounds like fun.
It does. All right. Todd says this is Todd, and will do. Excellent. That's great. And you have a great big thank you, John, and me too, but mostly thank you, John, from attendees in the session. That's great.
Always fun doing this.
I love it. You're such a great presenter to have. All right, folks, make sure you vote on your upcoming sessions. If your topics you want to see are not in there, be sure to add them. We change the survey all the time as new suggestions come in. This is about you. Thanks for coming, and we will see you next month. Oh, wait, we have a good one. Whoa, wow, we have a good one.
Yeah.
Docplans tend to be filed and forgotten. What can writers do to make sure documentation plan stays relevant?
Very good. Wonderful question. All right. You'll have the initial release, of course, you know, and there will be much fanfare and boo-ha-ha. As I say, you will be updating this, usually the outline. As you go through, you go, oh, we need a section on this, or we should move that section over here, something like that. But every time you make any change to the outline above, you know, a word or two, re-release the doc plan and send an email to everybody concerned saying, I have updated the doc plan, and the change log on the doc plan will say, you know, June 24th added a section on whatever, and so they will see this regularly. Can you get them to actually read it? No, probably not. Not if they're not inclined. But if you keep telling them, I am doing this with the doc plan, and then periodically you have bigger changes, saying we have updated the scope per such and such staff meeting to do, you know, to actually include how to take over Czechoslovakia, then you might well get them to read the bigger changes at least. And if you have a subsequent sign-off saying, I need approval on this new scope that includes a section on how to take over Czechoslovakia, then you might actually get them to pay attention.
Excellent. So there's a follow-up question.
Yes.
If the doc plan is a living document, do you just save off a copy of the initial approved version separately?
I tend to do this in Word. I always do this in Word, I should say, because FrameMaker is just too powerful a tool, and it's too much of a pain to work with. Yes, I use FrameMaker all the time, and it's still a pain to work with. And so I instead tend to put, I make a note in the changelog saying I changed this to that on such and such a date in this section. And if necessary, I will, if it's the outline, I will have in the comments on a section, I will put an emendation that says, you know, June 24th, added this section because blah, 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 might even cite the, and Steve R., the vice president, said, we should include this on how to take over Czechoslovakia. Everybody nodded their heads, so I put it in, kind of a thing. So the documentation plan, I'm not doing version control or anything fancy like that. It just kind of evolves, but there is a certain amount of audit trail within the changelog and then notes within the document plan itself that will show me kind of how I got there. If you feel like saving it off as a separate documentation plan so you have multiple different versions, initial, Docplans 610 2014 initial release, and then updates like that, I would have no problem with that, and I have certainly done things like that myself.
Sounds like a good plan. I know it's like when I write comments, I do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Always good to write down where it came from. Okay,
oh,
so
yeah.
Exactly. Where were you in a meeting? Did you get a phone call? Did you get an email? All right, well, here's another one.
Yes.
Although I think this is a little bit not quite the same. How do you negotiate terms? I sent out a request last year and never heard back. Is it reasonable to submit again and negotiate a little lower rate? It's not the same kind of terms, I think.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A little
lower
again. Rate.
Yeah, I don't know. Why would you do that? Yeah, this is the question. So I think it's negotiate terms to bid on a job rather than terms once you have a job and are planning the document. Susan, is that the right question? I'll see if she follows up.
I'm trying to think of a good answer here.
Yes, it was to bid on a job.
Yeah. Actually, what I tend to do is, I'll send something out, and if they're, and if it's an hourly rate with a, say, with a cap, which is the way I tend to do things, I will tend to say, yes, this is the rate, and this is why, and then I will extol my many virtues and say, either I will say this is par for the area. Actually, I won't say that at all. But if I know I'm bidding a little high, I will say, in my case, I'll say, yes, this may look a little higher than some of the other rates that you're getting, but in fact, you're getting all of this additional experience, which will end up costing you far, far less over the course of the project, because I will know instantly what to do as opposed to having to look it up. I have an actual piece on how to do that, which was in a different lecture, and it's kind of out of the scope on this. But basically, I sell them the idea that I am a pro from Dover, and by cracky, if you hire me, that's what you'll be getting, and that's why you're paying just a little more, something like that.
Right. Okay, good. One more question. We've got.
Sure.
Can I switch back to you and you show the link for the template?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go.
All right, showing my screen and pulling this up and hang on, let me do that full scale and scrolling all the way down.
Yep,
and
there we go.
Oh, darn it. And yep, went right on by, and it kicked out summary. Pling.
There we are.
There we go. And moving.
We've got it. Now we can see it, John.
Cool.
The go-to-meeting thing is in your way, but not in ours.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yep,
It's smart.
Can't see it. It is very. All right. Any further questions? Or I think we're pretty much out of time. We ran over a little bit. Usually we try to keep these short, sweet, and to the point, and just enough to make you dangerous or want to be so.
And if you have questions or comments or suggestions, feel free to ping me at john@hedtke.com.
Excellent. All right, folks, thanks for coming, and thank you, John, again for doing this. It's fabulous. I learn things every time I listen to you.
Thank you.
Great. We'll see you next time.
Definitely.